They came from all over.
I thought this was my chance to see the world.
So many from small towns.
Muscuda.
Winona, Minnesota was Dottie's hometown.
I really didn't think that much about some war going on in some little country on the other side of the world at that time.
So many going from homecoming courts to combat fields.
All the medical staff in the evac hospitals, they worked till they fell over.
From school tests to battle tested.
We hang IVs on nails on the wall. Lizards and rats run around the walls and floors at night.
They dealt with soldiers their own age who often did not survive that initial triage. And to have to do that every single day.
They're the backbone of the medical operation.
Yet more than 50 years later, so many are still unrecognized.
What we saw there was a nightmare, and it also went unmentioned.
I hate the sound of helicopters today.
They saved soldiers in Vietnam, children in Vietnam, and returned home to hate.
The professor told Dottie that she was a baby killer and she should burn her uniform.
They lived real-time, real-life lessons in duty and the solace of service as soldiers.
I wanted to be part of the action, but above all, I really wanted to serve.
These are the testimonies of and the testaments to the women who served in Vietnam. More than 11,000 American women served in the Vietnam War. 90% of them served as volunteer nurses. I'm Donna Pittman. This KMBC9 Chronicle shares the stories of some of the women who chose to serve. Like so many Vietnam veterans, they have not shared their experiences. They've stayed mainly silent until now.
There's plates over here, so come grab one.
This home in Lee Summit, Missouri.
We're having the mojito. It's delicious. Do you want to try it?
Ocho mojito?
Has been transformed into the 114th EVAC hospital.
Hello. Oh boy.
The women inside transformed by a book which inspired the Jell-O molded, patriotic, processed,
Twinkies are referenced many times in the book.
and Ho Chi Minh Hitoed menu. Throwbacks to American life in the 1960s.
I don't know about you all, but I finished this book in like 2 days. It was really fast. So good.
The book, titled The Women by Kristen Hanna,
I didn't know much at all.
is historical fiction about women serving in the Vietnam War.
And what I tried to do on the map over here is map out where all the places that Frankie was.
It's fiction fostering curiosity about what really happened.
I would like to see a nurse's perspective.
And the real places, real women
To feel so unseen.
made a real impact.
That whole storyline, that would wreck anybody.
It is my great honor to introduce a real American hero, Lou Eisenbrandt.
It's a story Lou Eisenbrandt knows all too well.
I am just blown away to see this many people here. I mean, it looks like Easter Sunday morning.
This isn't so much sermon as much as service for Lou.
Thank you to my fellow veterans.
She joined the Army in 1968 at age 21 and wrote a book about her time as a Vietnam nurse.
I got a manila envelope, said, "Congratulations, you're going to Vietnam." I didn't think that needed celebrating, but.
Living in Leawood, Kansas today, Lou was raised in small-town Illinois.
I thought this was my chance to see the world. I mean, I did not join the Army to save lives.
Lou's fate would take her to the 91st EVAC hospital.
I took a picture out of the plane window of the Mekong River. The plane gets very quiet, because there were 200 plus guys. There were 13 women on the plane and the rest were all men. And, reality, I think that's when reality sets in.
Lou was boots on the ground in Vietnam in war.
This is where my room was, on the back side of this building.
Okay.
That's the officers' club, the mess hall.
Her job, care for American GIs.
That's the ER.
As well as injure Vietnamese soldiers and civilians.
Nurses take an oath, much like doctors take the Hippocratic Oath, which is, I will treat everyone.
A young woman putting men back together.
You try to take into consideration what the result is going to be. What is this person going to be like? We saved triple amputees. And you know, in your mind you think, are they going to thank me 20 years from now that we saved their life? Or are they going to be struggling with other things and maybe saying, I wish I had died? I mean, that's just laying it on the line.
Lou and nurses like her
That was the medical floor I worked on.
put their own lives on the line to save others.
When you're working in a combat zone, you have got to you've got to function, because if I fell apart, that could mean that somebody else lost their life because I wasn't doing my job.
More than 50 years later, Vietnam has never left Lou.
This is my boonie hat and my dog tags, encased in plastic so that they didn't clang together to let the enemy know I was near. And there I am reading Godfather.
One of her most prized possessions came before her tour, a Purple Heart from a wounded soldier.
I said, why are you giving me your Purple Heart? And he said, because you're headed to Vietnam now, and you probably won't get any medals because women generally don't get medals. And he said, I'd like for you to have it because you'll earn it. And I tried to talk him out of it, and he said, no, I'll just leave it if you don't take it. So I accepted it, and I share it everywhere I go, and I make clear that I didn't receive this from the government. This was a gift from a patient. So I want people to know that.
Memories still so vivid.
This is the spiral notebook, my journal, and this was my short calendar where I started marking off all the days.
Documenting each day spent in Vietnam.
We got hit 0600 to 0700, Buku casualties all day, ground attack at 1:15. Good Lord, can't get any sleep here. Mascal at 7:30, off work at 11:25. Unbelievable day, record 99 patients, nearly all Vietnamese casualties. Worked till 11:20.
Lou saved lives and left Vietnam with hers. She got married, raised a family, then in 2002, tremors, the diagnosis, Parkinson's disease.
The day I was diagnosed, I said to the neurologist, why? I don't have a family history that I know of. And she said, well, because you don't, there's one other thing that we usually look at. And she said, that's herbicides and pesticides, spraying. And I said, oh, I'm guilty. I said, I have lots of veggies and flower beds. She said, Lou, no, we're talking big. I was playing on the computer and something popped up and said the VA will consider claims filed for people who have been diagnosed with Parkinson's as a result of exposure to Agent Orange. And that's when the light bulb went off.
Are you angry?
Yeah, I guess I've gotten, I'm angry. I'm angry not so much that I have Parkinson's, but that the whole war was screwed up and was not run like a war should be, and nobody did their homework who should have been doing their homework. And that's the part that makes me angry. That's partially why I keep speaking. I'm afraid, and not just women, I'm afraid that if we quit talking about it, like the Holocaust, it'll get swept under the rug. up until 3 or 4 years ago, I still had a couple GIs that said, I didn't think there were women in Vietnam.
7,000 served, 8 died.
Still ahead on Chronicle.
I can tell you, the opinion that soldiers have of nurses is guardian angels.
The life-saving work of the women who served and the lasting legacy of one who didn't make it home.
The family really didn't like to talk too much about it because it just brought up bad memories.
There are just 8 women among the more than 58,000 names on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., each of them nurses and all volunteers. In the many years the U.S. was involved in the Vietnam conflict, about 21 female soldier was killed by enemy fire. Her name, Sharon Lane, her hometown, Canton, Ohio.
The family really didn't like to talk too much about it because it just brought up bad memories.
This is the closest Tim Tritt will ever get to his Aunt Sharon.
Okay, her books, her school books are in here.
Inside a detached garage outside his Canton, Ohio home, where rubber tubs provide portals to a woman he doesn't remember.
You know, I was only a year and a half old.
That's when the Vietnam War changed the Lane family forever.
Killed in action in Vietnam, 8 June 1969. Commenced tour in Vietnam, 24 April 1969.
Army nurse and First Lieutenant Sharon Lane was just 25 years old and just 45 days into her tour when on June 8, 1969.
She was speaking to the medical assistant gentleman there, and he went to the door to watch the sunrise because he said the sunrises there were just so beautiful. And he got to the door and the mortars landed near the hospital, and those mortars have a lot of shrapnel, and one caught her in the neck.
Sharon was killed instantly and is the only American nurse killed by enemy fire in the entire war. The Lane family would never fully recover.
How they found out about it is he came home from work, they watched a few minutes of the news, and one of the news things said that there was a military nurse killed in Vietnam today. From what I understand, he turned off the TV and went downstairs to take a shower, and that's when the vehicle pulled up and 2 uniformed guys came to the front door. My grandfather answered the door and said, "She's dead, isn't she?" And they said yes, and he slammed the door in their face, from what I understand was the story I was told. That's my grandpa and my grandmother.
As Tim grew, he had questions about the woman his family honored but never really talked about.
Yeah, what kind of aunt would she have been to us then? You know, would she have been the cool one that came and picked us up and, you know, took us to Geauga Lake or SeaWorld or Cedar Point? She even signed it, typing it though, Cher.
But in these tubs, Tim found a way to turn back time.
This one was to my mom and dad. Greetings from Chu Lai by the sea.
He's reading Sharon's handwritten letters home for the very first time.
We have a water shortage here, so have to use only a minimum amount to save it. Only allowed 1 shower a day per person, plenty of hot water, but almost no cold.
Sharon wrote her family about things she missed.
Yogurt, pop, potato chips especially.
She shared stories laced with levity.
Tonight is happy hour at the Officers Club, but I rarely go over there. Is air conditioned with a stolen air conditioner from a dock at Da Nang. A couple of enlisted men stole it a couple of months ago. It is supposed to be for an airplane hangar, so you can imagine how cold it makes that club.
Sometimes her words were weighted with the horrors of war.
2 nights ago, I was taking care of this 11-year-old boy with gunshot wound of the abdomen. No patients died so far this week, knock on wood. I have 3 real sick ones though. One is a 2-year-old girl, has been running a temp of 104 to 106.
And others, requests.
So will you look around for electric blanket for a single bed? We'll need it about the last of August or 1st of September when it starts getting cooler.
And in her final communication,
Dear Mom and Dad, got your letters?
she was happy about her new schedule.
Start nights tomorrow, so don't have to get up early tomorrow. Nice thought. Still very quiet around here. Haven't gotten mortared for a couple of weeks now. We'll stop for now. Getting sleepy. See you sooner. Cher. So that would have been her last letter.
Sharon would lose her life just 4 days later. Thinking of Sharon's sacrifice, Tim can't help but think of all the women who served.
You know, you want to remember them all. You know.
To those women, 2 words.
Thank you.
The Army is full of hero soldiers, but what many overlook, it's full of heroines as well.
So was this hers, or do we know?
I believe that is hers.
Wow.
At the Military Aviation Preservation Society Air Museum, or MAPS, in Canton, Ohio, Tim Tritt is seeing evidence of his Aunt Sharon Lane's heroic actions as an Army nurse in Vietnam.
The tent she was in, a rocket came through the ceiling and exploded, killed her and several others.
The only American servicewoman killed by hostile fire.
Sharon's fatigues, scissors, stethoscope, all saved.
She's near and dear to our heart. You know, and many of us didn't actually know her, but we know where she worked, okay? And we know the grounds she walked on. You know, we can feel the pain a little different than other people. I was a combat medic in the field with the infantry. I wouldn't trade any of my time for 20 minutes of hers, okay? That's the difference between I have a patient for 40 minutes to an hour. She has them for weeks, okay? Big difference, big difference.
Thank you, thank you.
When I come in here and I think of Sharon Lane, it's about the people she saved, the people that she helped. It was thousands. On average in Vietnam, we returned back to full duty, 12,500 wounded soldiers a month. That's a lot of people that have been in and out of a hospital.
Ted Mathias recreated this field hospital at MAPS similar to an evac in Vietnam.
Triage would have looked very much like this, even in the evac hospital. There's no difference. Trauma station is a trauma station. I don't care where you put it. You know, you got doctors, trauma doctors over there doing 90 surgeries a month on average. A lot of those surgeries might be 14 hours, 15 hours. All the medical staff in the evac hospitals, you know, they worked till they fell over.
But this former combat medic says the real work came after lives were saved.
First 2 weeks of serious injury is critical to the patient
Yeah.
because you have the medical conditions and you have the person, and you have to save both. And to my knowledge, the only people that can do both is a nurse.
The care from nurses was essential.
The nurse's intuition, I don't know whether they pick up on the vibes, what it is, but they can understand.
Many nurses often went beyond their training, connecting soldiers to their families back home.
They have a letter from home. Somebody has to read it to them. They want to send a note home to let mom and dad know they're doing well and they're fine. Somebody has to write that. The doctor's real good at taking care of the body, but sometimes not so good at taking care of the person. So that gives you kind of insight into what Sharon Lane would have been like. Look at what she did. That's not an average person. It's not a common person. Just think about the thousands of people that she helped.
Countless lives saved by the women who served.
They were engines shot out, systems shot out, blades shot up.
These were dying troops, our brothers and sisters, and she handled it very, very well.
But the trauma they would carry for years.
It's hard, but it is a part of war that's unfortunately a reality that we deal with.
Stories that have remained untold until now.
I understand why she didn't tell us as kids, but I wish we had those opportunities now.
Welcome back to Chronicle. I'm Donna Pittman. The U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War lasted nearly 20 years. More than 3 million people were killed, including more than 58,000 Americans. But that number would have been much higher if not for the women who served.
I enlisted in the Army the 1st of February 1967. I had spent the previous semester at Arkansas Tech University in Russellville. I did extremely well in ROTC and the Sport Parachute Club. Everything else was an abject failure. So it occurred to me that perhaps that was the good Lord's way of telling me that perhaps I had other directions to go. And so I went down and enlisted in the Army as a paratrooper.
The baby boy who grew up in Hot Springs, Arkansas, turned young man would head a world away January 1st, 1969.
And I arrive in Vietnam and am assigned to the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One. I was assigned as a Huey pilot initially.
Hugh Mills was 20 years old when he arrived in Vietnam, just 14 days after being promoted to first lieutenant.
I don't think I knew enough to be afraid. Had never been shot at, had never seen an enemy soldier, had never seen an injured or deceased American. So I didn't have a frame of reference for fear. The minute the door opens on that aircraft, the smell and the humidity, the heat, is overpowering.
Hugh worked as a scout pilot.
The mission is to fly low level, low speed, and to track and seek enemy soldiers. We flew 4 to 6 feet off the ground or above the highest obstacle. Our normal engagements were 25 to 50 meters, 150 feet. You've heard the term whites of their eyes. Yeah, we could see the whites of their eyes. We could see the expression on their face, whether it was fear or anger. We could smell them. We were that close.
In June of '70, Hugh married his high school sweetheart, Margaret. Just months later, news scarier than any war.
In October of that year, my wife was diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
They moved to Fort Sam Houston for her care.
It was rough. I didn't know when she was first diagnosed that it was terminal because they didn't tell me, but over a period of time it became very obvious that she would not recover.
Margaret died February 1st, 1971. Hugh felt left with nothing, certainly nothing left to lose.
And so I got a hold of the Army and said, hey, I don't really want to stay at Fort Sam Houston. Given the circumstances, let me go back to Vietnam, and I think that would be helpful to my situation. And they were very supportive. Not a lot of guys volunteered to go back.
Hugh went back to Vietnam as a Cobra pilot with the 101st Airborne Division.
My intent was to give me something else to worry about.
All said, Hugh would complete 3 tours in Nam and be shot down 16 times.
15 times in an OH-6 and once in a Cobra.
Now living in Kansas City, Missouri, Hugh knows the work of Army nurses too well.
I was on a scout mission and was taken under fire by an enemy with an AK-47, and the round came into the cockpit and hit my armor plate on the inside rather than the outside. And it went through my right buttock and out the left buttock, and so I was shot in the butt and ultimately was transferred down to the 93rd Evac. And as you're brought in on a stretcher, they lay you on a table, and the first thing that happens is out come the scissors and your clothes disappear. They cut everything off, and you are laid bare in front of a 22-year-old woman. Although your butt hurts so bad that it doesn't, that's not a problem.
He wasn't always the patient. As an officer, he saw the worst.
I experienced the triage of my own men on 3 occasions where I flew them into the hospital and then was in the room when they were triaged, and I had a great deal of difficulty with that. One was shot through the neck. The other 2 were shot more seriously. The nurses, the things they saw on a daily basis far exceeded, in my opinion, what I had to deal with. And the long-term effect on their psyche had to be significant. And that's all they saw on a daily basis. It didn't get any better as their tour went along. Bill Jones, rest his soul. Bill was burned significantly in a crash of an aircraft. And I asked the nurse, I said, I'm here to see Mr. Jones. He was a warrant officer. And she said, he's 4th row down on the right. And I went down and looked and came back and I said, that's not Mr. Jones. And she said, yeah, that's Mr. Jones. I said, no, Jones is white. That guy's black. She goes, that's Mr. Jones. That's how badly he was burned. I thought he was an African American. Bill Jones survived. He prospered.
Because, Hugh says, of the women who served.
To survive that kind of a wound, probably 40–50% of his body by burning jet fuel, was amazing. And the folks that did that, not only the nurses, but of course the doctors, but the nurses were there with them every day, all day, 24 hours a day. These were all young women, brand new nurses. These were not combat hardened veteran nurses in most cases. By and large, they were young women, 21, 22 years old, right out of nursing school. You know, you go from Peoria, Illinois, and 3 days later you're in a combat zone treating wounded soldiers. So yeah, they deserve every bit of the respect and recognition that's available for them.
Next on Chronicle.
August 9th, 69. This is when she left.
Every person who served their country has a story to tell.
She has a line in here my mom wrote. She's like, the first time I realized how insignificant we were thought of.
Even when they can't tell it themselves.
I wish we knew more at the time when we were able to talk to her a little bit more and hear her stories.
The ways the past is connecting to the present.
They're your photo albums.
Yeah.
Would you like to look at them?
And forever changing the perspective about the women who served. More than 265,000 American women served in the U.S. military during the Vietnam War. About 11,000 of them were stationed there in the Army, Air Force, Navy, and in other roles. And while it may sound strange, Vietnam is part of a love story that's lasted decades.
This was the Rocky Mountain newspaper. They did a feature on Dottie, U.S. Army Helps Cupid. And it talked about how we had met and kind of our story. We met in just around Christmas in 1966.
I was struck by his blue eyes and his smile.
Ken Snow, with those blue eyes, that smile, also had orders.
I was on orders for Vietnam, and we were trying to figure out how this would work. And I worked for a colonel who said, I think I can get you back after the year in Vietnam. So we thought that would work, but then she got word that she'd either be going to Vietnam or Korea. And we couldn't see me coming back about the time she was going over. We just didn't know if it would work. So she volunteered for Vietnam.
Snow and Dottie Dye both committed to the U.S. Army and committed to each other less than a year after meeting for life. Married on layover in Hawaii in September of 1967. Just days later, both were in Vietnam.
It was not a honeymoon in Vietnam.
Year one wasn't all Kodachrome.
This was outside our little what we called hooch. It was a 12 by 20 room where we lived for a year. And we were in our fatigues, and we sent the picture back and did a Christmas card, Peace on Earth.
Dottie worked as a nurse, Ken an administrative officer.
Dottie was right in the hospital area. She was at 24th and Back Hospital, and I was about a mile away, and I often could borrow the Jeep to get back and forth. I worked for a medical dispensary.
Their story that started nearly 60 years ago carries chapters of unimaginable joy.
This is the Sunday Magazine in Winona, Minnesota. It was Dottie's hometown when she left to go to nursing school and then eventually Vietnam.
An inconceivable pain. Dottie survived a massive stroke in 2014. Today, every day, she's still surviving her tour in Vietnam.
So long ago. But it makes me very sad.
She started out in the wards, and then several months later, she moved to the emergency room. And the choppers would come in less than 30 minutes after the GIs were hit. And she, for the most part, worked 12-hour shifts 7 days a week because of the nursing shortage. There was no way to save many of them. They were put behind screens. And then the doctors attended to those that still had a chance to live. So it was a very, very difficult situation.
I hate the sound of helicopters today because it means patients will come in. First I worked in emergency room and then surgical post-op ward.
That sound sends her back a world away, which brings it all back to Dottie. The triage, the trauma, the horror.
I'm wondering if they're alive first. And I also wonder if I know them. I knew one of my friends from high school came through and he had
He survived. He survived.
and
A high school friend.
But not everyone did. One young man's struggle will forever affect Dottie.
I wish I could contact his family to say I was with him, but I can't remember his name.
She's talking about a young GI that was dying. And at the time she was in the ward before she moved to the emergency room, and he was screaming for his mother, kept saying, "Mother, mother, mother." And Dottie was trying to console him, and that's haunted her. It still haunts her. She still dreams about that.
And he didn't make it.
He didn't make it.
There was and still is so much pain.
These were dying troops, our brothers and sisters, and she handled it very, very well. I would go over there to meet her for lunch. We'd eat in the mess hall at the hospital, and I could hardly stand being in the emergency room for more than 5 or 10 minutes. It was so brutal. But she lived that for a year, almost a year.
Coming home was far from a homecoming. Dottie was shunned and shamed.
When we came home, they told us to burn our uniforms. And
Anti-war protesters. And she went back to college after we got home, and she was in a classroom. It was not anybody. It was a visiting professor, and they got into the discussion somehow of Vietnam. I wasn't there. But the professor told Dottie that she was a baby killer, and she should burn her uniform. And everybody in the classroom just sat silent. It was just a stunning moment. Very difficult.
So that was it. Dottie stopped talking about Vietnam, completed college, had children, taught music, tried moving on. Then a call from her best friend, fellow Vietnam veteran Trudy Eck. They served together. Trudy wanted to go together to a new monument being unveiled in D.C.
Dottie didn't talk about Vietnam. You know, she just didn't talk about it because it was so emotional for her.
Said, I don't do Vietnam.
But Trudy convinced her to go, be there for this part of history, and be recognized for her part in it. A surprise send-off from her students at Meadow Lane in Lee Summit, Missouri made headlines. The trip made a difference.
And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to Dottie. She came back with a totally different outlook. And that's when she started seeking more help and attention that really turned her life around.
The Vietnam Women's Memorial in Washington, D.C. stands as a testament to the women who served. Their time, their sacrifices, their lives are not forgotten.
It's important because it shows that women were there and that they gave everything.
No matter all the after effects of this war, one thing is certain today.
Are you proud of your service?
Oh, yeah.
I'm very proud of her.
Life-saving service, sacrifice, and strength through it all.
I'm just exceedingly grateful for the women that served and couldn't respect them more. My heartfelt thanks. My heartfelt thanks.
March 29th, 1973, the day the last U.S. military unit pulled out of Vietnam. It's no secret troops returning home were met with hate. The women were also met with disbelief. They even served, and disregard.
She was our mother.
Yeah.
She was tough.
Yeah.
So she was very no nonsense about certain things. So nothing. She never really got flustered.
Ann Lynch lives in Florida now. She served in Vietnam in 1969. She didn't really talk to her kids about what she did or her time at war, but recently they uncovered information about all she did in an unexpected way.
So I think these are more Vietnam. She was in her mid-20s when she went. She said at first that she just wanted to travel. She wanted to see the world. She didn't really give too much thought to what was going on halfway around the world with this war.
Megan Hull's mom, Ann Lynch, saw more than any human should see as an Army nurse in Vietnam.
She says that she did things over there that professionally it was the hardest year of her life, but it was also the most rewarding, the most challenging, the most exhausting. She said she did things over there she would never probably do again in her nursing career. You know, she saw things she hoped she never saw again.
But Megan didn't learn that from her mom directly.
I know she talked about it with others, but just not with her children.
Next, on China Beach.
She watched that religiously.
Tell them I can't use my arm, and they'll send me home.
Ann would watch China Beach, a late 80s, early 90s TV show on ABC about nurses in Vietnam.
She thought they did a really good job of portraying it, you know, still Hollywood, but kind of portraying the emotions of what they went through.
I could go home. A couple toes, that's all it takes.
Until a few years ago, that was one of the closest insights Megan had into what her mom endured while she was deployed to Vietnam.
But it wasn't until just going through some of the boxes that I found, like this speech.
The speech, written in Ann's hand, it's one she gave to fellow nurses, all Vietnam vets.
There is a bond between us all that only we ourselves can understand. We all went into the military for different reasons. None of us were drafted, we volunteered. We made wonderful friendships, some that lasted a lifetime. We were honest with each other and we helped each other. Whatever our job was in the military, whatever our rank was, we were playing a vital part in shaping the history of this country. Women are regarded as being nurturers, and nowhere is this more evident than in the military. Often we acted as surrogate mothers, sisters, wives, and girlfriends to soldiers, sailors, and airmen. Speaking as a nurse, I recall when I first realized how insignificant we were looked upon. I was in a doctor's office and picked up the Time magazine. It had been 10 years since the Vietnam War had ended, and the whole issue was devoted to this and the events that had taken place. Some of the people said how terrible some of the injuries were and how it affected them, and how they felt it went on and on about this. But then I realized that I saw those same injuries for at least 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, for 365 days. There was not one mention of a nurse in the whole article. What we saw there was a nightmare also, but it went unmentioned.
What was once unmentionable, now forever lost. Megan will never have the chance to truly talk about Ann's time in Vietnam.
Hi.
What?
How are you? How you doing?
What?
How are you doing, Mom? Are you having a good day? Looks like you're having lunch.
Yeah, nice.
Almost finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to finish your broccoli? It's good for you.
Want some?
I'm good, thanks. I had breakfast already. So hey, we're gonna go take a little walk, okay?
Long gone are the days of worrying about mortar attacks, incoming, and triage in the jungle. Ann's memory of those, and most days, has disappeared.
Do you know who that is?
No.
That's you.
Yeah.
It's you. Looking good. Looking good. It's Vietnam. When you were a nurse over in Vietnam. At one of the hospitals.
She's in a hospital?
No, you used to work in a hospital in Vietnam.
Huh?
You were a nurse in Vietnam during the war. You used to take care of people.
I didn't know.
Yes, you did. You did.
Huh.
Here, there's some more over here. Maybe these pictures. Do you know what it is? It's for the Vietnam Women's Memorial.
No matter her memory, no matter how yellow these photographs get, Anne's impact can never be erased. Neither can those words and the speech dedicated to and for the women who served.
I don't think any of us think of ourselves as heroes. We would like to be remembered simply as women who served in the military, who did their jobs well without regard to politics, either at home or on the battlefield. I want to thank you all for letting me become one of you. It was a great time. Yeah.
You know,
Like I said, she did not suffer any fools. She was very no nonsense. I think maybe have a better understanding of what she went through. It made a lot more things make sense.
Yeah.
I'm proud of her.
Megan has one message for her mom and all the women who served.
I would say thank you. I would say I think they paved the way for the women of today. I would say we're sorry you didn't get the recognition you deserve. I would say I hope we can hear your stories. You know, so we can hear their experiences and remember what they did.
More than 11,000 women were deployed to Vietnam during the war, yet many of their experiences remain untold. So many stories lost to time. But what does remain is a prayer written by Army Colonel Mildred I. Clark, the chief of the U.S. Army Nurse Corps during Vietnam. The prayer of an Army nurse became the creed for the women who served.
Hear my prayer in silence before thee, as I ask for courage each day.
Grant that I may be worth of the sacred pledge of my profession.
And the lives of those entrusted to my care. Help me to offer hope and cheer in the hearts of men and my country.
For their faith inspires me to give the world and nursing my best.
Instill in me the understanding and compassion of those who led the way.
For I am thankful to you for giving me this life to live.